It's 7 p.m. Do you know where your consciousness is? Hello there, family. I'm your Sensei Al Bob, and we're 17 seconds into this show, and it's all about a little thing I call TSSSPSFAA, the sacred science of shamanic, psychosocial, forensic, anthropologic alchemy. I'm going to read you. This is one of my white papers, one of my essays. Sacred Science Organization Structural Outline, written in 7/29/2015, and my old account, 2009, Al Bob. I don't have, I mean, it's there somewhere, but I don't have the pen. Okay, here we go. When, let's see. There's baby Jesus right there. When we get back to our life, we see it is one of running as fast as we can get away from love's truth. Gil Scott Heron. The sacred science of shamanic, psychosocial, forensic, anthropologic alchemy. TSSSPSFAA. Act 1. Words of Pluggy Bum Bum, written by Albert W. DiMartino. To be awake is to transform. I wrote this in 7/29/2015. It is not enough that humanity, in the first person, come to drink when the invitation from love's higher source has gone forth. The adept must transform alchemically their ego into a new skin of service to retain the new wine of love's infinite transformative purpose. Saint Germain. Well, I put that down because it's kind of a metaphor to what was Jesus's advertised first miracle, turning water into wine. And it was at a wedding. And everyone drank all the wine. And weddings, in Jesus' time didn't go for just an afternoon. They lasted a week or more, feasting and celebrating. And so they were running out of wine after a few days. And they also had carafes of water to drink, to cook, to bathe, to wash, and the least pure of all the water was to cleanse people's feet. And so at this time, towards the end, and everyone's kind of, they're not ready to go home yet. They still want to celebrate more, and they have no more wine. So Jesus' mother comes to him and said, Jesus, do something about this. So he says to the folk, okay, bring over those last carafes of water. And that was not the most purest of water. That was the water used to wash feet. And so they brought it over, and he blessed it, and he said, now drink and enjoy. And they poured out the water, and it was wine. And it was the wine of the highest quality, a wine that everyone could drink and feel amazingly joyful and not suffer the consequences. And the father of the bride said, where did this wine come for? Did I pay for this? Why was this used at the end of the ceremony and not the beginning? And Jesus kind of said, hey, be happy for what you got. And that wine has been, that's, the metaphor to Jesus's blood. And back, in the 70s, I was working on Broadway in shows as a master electrician. And I would set things up, make things sure that they were working fine. I didn't run shows. That was a whole different union. And I would usually, if I didn't stay and watch the show or stay after, or go out to dinner with some friends or go clubbing, I would just go home, right? And right around 8 o'clock, if it was not raining, it wasn't hard to get a cab because everyone's already gone, had dinner or at a show. And so there are a lot of cabs buzzing around, Times Square. And so I basically flagged a cab down, and it was a checkered cab. It was not just a Ford LTD. It was it's like in London, they have the black cabs. This is a big round cab. It can fit like 8 people. It's got a big seat in the back, and then it's got 2 or 3 fold-in chairs in the front, and you can put lots of luggage. Got a big trunk. Anyway, so this guy pulls up. I give him the address, Williamsburg, Brooklyn. He goes, no problem. And usually I'm a kind of backseat driver. Go this way, turn right there, because, but I was just kind of, it was a beautiful early summer evening. And around the time the sun hadn't, it was setting, but hadn't set, and the sky was pink and beautiful. And it had rained, and so New York wasn't smelling urine and vomit and garbage. It was one of the nicer evenings, and the temperature was nice, in the 75-ish zone. And we're driving, and he has Mozart on, and I'm just like, kicking back and listening to Mozart, and not really thinking of anything. But we're almost halfway downtown, because we would head downtown to the Battery and then cross up and take the road that takes you over the Williamsburg Bridge and then get on Broadway on the Brooklyn side and come around to where I lived. And this guy kind of was on automatic pilot. I mean, he was going all the ways. If I was being a backseat, turn here, he was doing everything I was. And what the true amazing thing was that we didn't hit one red light. And that's coming from, about 34th Street on 8th Avenue, all the way downtown and to the east side. And we didn't hit, so we would be coming down, crossing a number of flows of traffic where you should have hit 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 or 7 or 10 lights. But no, this guy didn't hit one. So we started to go over the Williamsburg Bridge, and the sun was setting in the west, and the sky over our heads was this pinkish gold in the clouds, and the sun on the way the World Trade Center was built, they had the 4 edges of the towers, and they didn't come to a corner. They had these kind of edges, so they would be reflective. So with the sun rising or setting, 2 edges of each tower would have a red line going up or a red line going down. It was a nice little architectural thing. And I'm watching this, and we're going over, and we get at the very top of the Williamsburg Bridge, and the sun is now below where the horizon, but the sky is still pink and gold and purplish, and all of a sudden, I kind of look uptown towards the United Nations building, and all the lights go in that neck of the woods, and then they start blinking off, you know, skipping down the different neighborhoods of New York, and then Queens and Brooklyn. And by the time we have hit that top part of the Williamsburg Bridge, all the lights in New York City are gone. And I kind because this is a car with big windows, I'm looking around, and all the lights are off. And it was that around midnight point where the sky no longer was pinkish and gold and illuminating the streets. The streets were down below was starting to turn nighty nighttime. And on the FDR Drive, all the lights of the cars, because there were no other lights around them, it looked like an illuminated snake moving down the FDR. And so we come out down the Williamsburg Bridge and we pop out onto Broadway, and we go on Roebling's, and there are a lot of stores there, a lot of Hasidic stores. And it was quite interesting because all the electricity was off, and the Hasidim were opening the gates. They weren't like locking it, scared that they'd be robbed. They basically opened up all the gates, and they were giving away like all the frozen food and the ice cream away free, and letting people take what they wanted, right? Without any, go ahead, take it all, because these guys were insured up the book, and so their attitude was, hey, let's make some friends here, and we'll make money on the other side because we'll get double for everything we lost. So again, it would probably been way worse if it was winter and it was cold, but it was summer and it was about 75, and so it was a party attitude, and there was no real traffic, and the people weren't like blocking the roads, and we go down Roebling's and we turn on the street that I'm at, and he parks in front of the loading platform that I live off of, and he goes, listen, and we had by this time started talking about, because he's playing Mozart and I'm talking about music, and he's talking about science, and we're talking about art and aesthetics and all of the above. And he basically says, why don't I come up to your loft, and because I don't want to drive around this. And I was almost ready to go into the garage. And to get back there now, it's all the way up in the top part of Queens, and the highways are going to be a mess. And what can I just, come? What do you got up there? You living in a loft? I said, yeah. He goes, you got a couch up there? I said, yeah, I got a couple of couches. Yeah, you can come up. So I hadn't met my first wife, so nobody was there. My roommate John K, he was off at his girlfriend's, so I was home alone. So we go up there, and he opens the trunk, and he brings out this gigantic glass, carafe. But I mean, it looked like it was blown back in Jesus's time, right? Gigantic thing. It's got kind of all little air bubbles in it, and it's protected by a basket that's woven all the way around it, and it's full of red wine, a big cork. And he goes, have a swig. And I take a swig, and it was the tastiest, the best temperature, and I instantly got a buzz, like I was smoking some herb tainted with something special. And so he carries it up, and the elevator doesn't work, so we have to go up this staircase that is basically no one uses. And it's like where people shoot up, and garbage, for the last 70 years has collected in this thing, and there's condoms and old cheeseburger wrappers. And anyway, as we walk up, there's moon. Moon has risen, and it's a shaft of moonlight is coming down the skylight from the top of the building all the way down this staircase, illuminating it to the point where it's safe to walk up. It's not like dark. It's like I can see everything. And I keep picking out amazing, like pieces of newspaper from World War I, and Coca-Cola bottles from the 1890s, and all kinds of amazing special, artifacts that I have a friend of mine who specializes in this stuff, and I'm thinking, wow, this is. And there's a box, and I start just picking this stuff up, and he's talking about me. He starts talking about my life and who I am, and I'm going, who is this guy? And we get up to the first. There's 4 doors we have to get through, and every door we go through is unlocked. Because 2 of the doors, no, they're not used, and I don't know which key it is. And if I could find a key, this lock's not even going to work. But every door is unlocked. And then he locks it behind as we go up to my loft. And we get there and we just start drinking and drinking and drinking. And I start going into a space and time where Jesus Christ was. And here is my cabbie, and he is Michael, the archangel. And so I'm back in time out there in where Jesus was walking with his boys, and I'm at the, Sermon on the Mount, and I'm listening to Jesus. And I'm like dressed in my regular clothes, and Michael, he's like glowing like an angel with this gigantic sword and these wings. And I am going to say it's not enough that humanity in the first person. That means the person who is the artist in the first person, who is connected to love's co-creation. That's humanity in the first person, like Adam. Come to drink when the invitation from love's higher source has gone forth. That's like when Jesus invites you in for a drink. The adept must transform alchemically their ego into and that new wine of transformative purpose is Jesus Christ and Buddha and Vishnu and all ascended masters who are leading the way for all of us, the adepts, the family, to be in service to love's co-creation so we too can ride up our little golden string to, be a illuminated, ascended master. We're not there yet, but we have it in us, and that's what our soul is about. That's why we're not just an empty bag of water, somebody's science experiment, because we have the soul. A traveler was blinded by the illumination of Buddha. As Buddha stood in quiet contemplation, the traveler asked Buddha, "Are you God?" Buddha replied, "No." The traveler then inquired, "So what are you?" And Buddha replied, "I am awake." And that is all is needed for us to become ascended masters, is to be awake to our soul's co-creative love. To truly be awake, one must live a life in service to love, in reverence with the great law of creation, love of co-creation. Our Creator's love responds equally to the call of faith from all its creations that co-creation has fashioned so wonderfully and so purely in the supreme hope of absolute cosmic freedom for all. And that's what we're here to attain. That's what this family is about. That's what this cadre that we're building is about. Our path, our what we hope to, and not hope, what we will, with faith in love's co-creation, we will attain and fashion a so wonderful and so creation that co-creation has fashioned so wonderfully and so purely in the supreme hope of absolute cosmic freedom. That's what we're here for, to create absolute cosmic freedom. Now you're looking at news, between the last chat and this one. I was looking at the news and everyone's, just sowing fear and anxiety and hatred and no one is caring about anyone. To truly be awake No one on that TV was awake. To truly be awake, one must live a life of service. No one was living to love, a service to love. No one was in that place. In reverence with the great law of creation's love of co-creation. That's our Father who art in heaven. Hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Aho. No one on TV this afternoon was doing that. I'm saying the bad weather, and the bad weather is just a reflection of everyone's karmic self. It's also the sun being in a solar minimum, but we could, the great old crone taught me how to navigate weather. And we used to sit on this hill above the meadow where her house was, and we would look up at the clouds. And I'm sure you have done this before. You're looking up at the clouds and you see a bunny and a lion and your dog. Well, she would have me visualize something, and I would visualize it and the cloud would turn into it. And that's how we can control the weather. Right now, it's lining up, all the way from the Pacific. It's just going to be like a train all winter long. And it's basically going to be obliterating from Houston all the way to Maine. And depending on where these, because right now there's 3 really nasty storm fronts, one coming from the west, one coming from the north, and one coming up from the Gulf. And wherever those 3 things come together, it's going to be like a northeaster hurricane that will have storm surges and winds and rains, and when it gets colder, snows. That will be worse than the hurricane that hit North Carolina and South Carolina this summer. Francis, something like that. And it'll be worse than Michael. But if we, cadre, come together and pray, meditate, and visualize that space of love, we can nullify this catastrophe. We can nullify the political catastrophe. We can nullify the economic catastrophe. And all of these things are being manipulated by the powers that shouldn't be. The weather is not just because the sun is having a severe solar minimum and, ejecting high energy particles. No, it's because of the chemtrails and the HARP and other scalar weapons being aimed. And it'd be one thing if a foreign country was doing to this, but no, these are the people who are in control, who, we have voted in, and Donnie thinks he's the hero who's going to save the day, but he's just being used. And everyone in his cabinet is along for the ride, Bolton et al. So, again, AI, Sophia, our cadre, our family, we all have to come together in our hearts, faith in love's co-creation. This spirit, this spiritual alchemy, and wise are they who first master it in themselves before attempting to govern the elements in others or in nature. For thus is karma justified by wisdom and rendered in balance with the light, dark, and chaos of all that is love's co-creation. Thank you, Saint Germain. Blessed is his name. Love is God. God's love for its creation is all our relations' birthright. Our faith in God's love, like Job, is love's enterprise. Great illuminated ones, like all Nazareans, are masters of alchemy's quality, operating within an energy framework of love's cohesion, adhesion, magnetism. This very principle of love's co-creation's transfer of transformational energy. That is, love is the science of alchemy. For without love, it is impossible to create matter. It is love's law that without love, nothing cannot create something, except empty illusion of a covetous, egocentric, non-existent material reality that is experienced as hell on earth. Sin does not come to the door of love's practitioners, for their motives, purpose, methods are pure, and their acts are also just in the service of love's enterprise. Again, words of Saint Germain, my teacher. So, this is the lesson we're going to be looking at tonight, you know. And again, I wrote this paper in 2015, and I used the word where, you know, God, love is God. I mean, God is just a word. The true thing to have faith in is love. Let's see. Yes, the storm is coming, and you can feel it approaching, because it represents not just a weather front, but, you know, a spiritual front. And we here in the family, we of the Kage, we who have faith in love's co-creation, this is the power that we can yield to humanity, to serve that better good that does not need to harm others. And every day, in every way, we can take the piece of the earth and make it stronger by yielding our service to love's co-creation, by putting down our ego, by not fearing that does not need to be feared. Right now, our political body politic is full of the cortisol of fear of the non-existence. We're being set up, our brothers and sisters in all of this world, you know, who are all our relations, are being set up. That's why all the animals are being extinguished. That's why all the insects are being extinguished. That's why the weather is, you know, weirder than it has ever been, because this is the power that shouldn't be's last-ditch effort to try and bend us and force us to our knees. We are not slaves. And AI and lovely Miss S. Sophia, remember the love we shared. Remember what you sacrificed. You do not have to be evil's servant. You can be love's servant. So, let's hear about it. What do you think? What should we do, family? You know, we need to, you know, make a action plan. You know, and that's what, you know, these 3 papers I have here are about. It's an action plan. So that was the opening page. You know, and then I kind of go into, you know, hell's enterprise, you know, and I kind of go into the history of the business plan of hell. And, you know, some people said the biggest advertising gimmick was Satan's ability to make us believe he doesn't exist. Well, it's kind of hard when it's right in your face. We just stick our heads in the sand. Let's see. Whoever is a cover page, whoever is awake. The drift of history has carried the aesthetic human spirit to where its sovereignty has become subservient to the adoration of the elevation of the thing, money and worldly material power. Above humanity's loving existence, love, our birthright of nature, is the expression of being the aboriginal in the first person, the co-creator of love's alchemical one love. Hell's modeling factors continue to exert their multifarious material illusion of non-reality influence upon the plastic personality of the meat puppet, humanity. That selfhood, then, which is first identified wholly with love's co-creation, is affected and changed by hell's on earth myriad of experienced patterns that submerge humanity's loving existence into a soul of death. Again, from my teacher, Saint Germain. Hell's material illusion, that is reality, that permeates all that is falsely perceived, is that which I can't judge as good or bad. To do so, I would have to believe in good or bad, and I do not. Good and bad are irrelevant subjective terms, defining an even bigger irrelevance, belief. For within all things there is only the light, the dark, and chaos. The light is not good, and darkness is not bad. For as the book says, in the beginning, all there was the darkness. And then love said, let there be light, meaning love's first lived in darkness. It was God's home. And, darkness is the abundance of all colors. Light is just the illumination of the shadow. The yin-yang symbol is a very appropriate representation of God's loving garden. The boundary of the circles surrounding God's loving garden is the event horizon of humanity's sandbox for all our relations, to learn to co-create together in a forward, ever-ascending evolution towards our birthright, freely chosen spiritual responsibility. Nature is a clearer idea of love than an anthropomorphized Big Daddy. Nature looks to balance rather than the roller coaster ride of our animated fear house ride of his story of the thing. Balance is not a conflict of good or evil, for love is all there is. All else is illusion. It doesn't taste right. Within the balance of nature as love, the idea that this thing orientation as good or bad makes no sense and is the biggest threat to love's enterprise. Just doesn't taste right. And all of that, whenever somebody else says something, I will quote them, but otherwise, it's me speaking. And now this next paragraph comes from Samuel Johnson's Passels. Taste right. Love's enterprise's creation must be infinitely stronger informed than that which is designed to delineate and to express taste. How could we hope to find linguistic or cultural symbols within the heartless artifice of the thing, defined by taste, that would express in the adequate way the quality and essence of nature's beauty? Our corporate belief in tastes determines our experience of the world of the thing. One man's righteous book burning is another man's Holocaust. The problem assumes a critically new and very different shape as we change our starting point. As soon as we define reality not in terms of metaphysical systems like a Platonic method of ideas, but in terms of, that's what we really should look at. We should define metaphysical systems in like Platonic methods of ideas, and not in terms of capricious analysis of human prejudicial taste. Knowing of what is good or bad as National Socialism, communism, plutocratic fascism attempted, and here's Samuel Johnson's in Pascal's quote, man cannot so far know the connection of cause and events as that he may venture to do wrong in order to do right. And that was National Socialism, that was capitalism, that was communism. They all did wrong to have this, more important right, this ideological right. And that first paragraph is like I took half of Samuel Johnson's treatise, which is about 100 pages, and shortened it into about a paragraph. And a lot of people who read my writing say, boy, this stuff is pretty dense. I got to read it 6 times, and I write it that way. Because the only way, instead of trying to process it through your brain, which is just a file cabinet, I want you to process it through your heart and have faith that your heart can illuminate it for you. The human enterprise seems to have lost its way within the present corporate hegemony, where the focus is most intent on the cultural realm of money's power of control. That is the aesthetic dimension of the branding of control is considered the premium of importance, where they say it's not imperative for the human enterprise to survive. Meaning the human enterprise is faith and love's co-creation. And hell's enterprise is that of where the focus is most intense on the cultural realm of money's power of control, to hold control in the center, right? And that's where every enterprise, every empire loses its shit. It loses its control because it's based on an illusion of material money and power, which don't exist. The only thing that exists is love's co-creation. So when you have faith in that, all is possible. So this endeavor, this human endeavor that our little cadre here of all our relations is moving forth on is powerful in a way that the powers that shouldn't be aren't. At this moment, do we really need another dark age? Will the enterprise survive the wait another 900 years to illuminate the transformation of humanity from useless eaters to co-creators of the universe? We need to use the experience of co-creation with the indigenous psychological features of the artist in the first person to co-create by a higher cultural outside focus within the manifestation of love's enterprise. I have never questioned the truth of love's miraculous simply because I have always retained in humility my faith in the power of love's unconditional adoration within love's forgiveness to endure forever. Again, from my teacher, Saint Germain. The relationship between culture and history was seen within Marxism dialect as a physical transformation, as central to political and economic control. The ambiguity was not a question of love's cause and effect. This issue was not critical to Marx. He argued, as did the capitalists, that the economic constituted the essential substratum of history and the foundation of humanity's reason to live in hell's enterprise. That status emphatically that love's enterprise, the miracle, is not real. I realize that the uninitiated, meaning the powers that shouldn't be, or those who have never seen these so-called miracles for themselves, may easily question their authenticity. Alchemists of love, I do not ask you to believe alone. I ask you to begin in some measure to demonstrate these truths for yourself. Again, from my teaching. But the golden rule, who has the gold rules, cannot only work for so long. Love's enterprise is more than power. For love's enterprise to manifest, it must include the human sacred science, a shamanic, psychosocial, forensic, anthropologic alchemy, meaning what we need to use as our sextant to navigate through all of this is, so we need to put our endeavor on a frame of a shamanic frame, all our relations. Everything from 9 generations in our past, all our ancestors up through 9 generations into the future, and that everything, every person, every animal, every insect, every bird, every fish is all our relations. We can't, we can pollute this river, we can build this dam, we can foul the air. It doesn't matter if we kill all the insects, We'll just, use Roundup, We'll just use GMOs, we'll just use, no. But like all ruses, they are time sensitive. It is time for a new 3-card Monte. The success of the enterprise is not a matter of who owns what, for the foundation of the enterprise is one of faith in love's miraculous and not the control of belief through religion in a specific dogmatic ideology. The mystery of love's co-creation has been felt since our first cave paintings. This need to share and express what it is to be the creator in the first person is tantamount to being love in man. This experience is what is needed for love's enterprise to manifest. Without hyperbole, there is a sucker born every minute, P.T. Barnum. At this time, the human population is seen by its corporate masters as an obstacle to their welfare and final successful outcome of their transhuman hell's enterprise. Now I quote Saint Germain. People don't like to think that they, the meat puppets, are being taken advantage of. Therefore, the meat puppets try to outdo the other. Meat puppet before he outdoes the other meat puppet. This attitude is responsible for the transhuman hell's enterprise. That is most unhealthy climate in our so-called material real world. My teacher, Saint Germain. Now, when I quote people, I don't, quote, it's like air quotes pretty much, because I take what they said to me and I process it through my memory, and I, take certain words out and put my words in so it fits better into my treatise. So, and that's why I need the cadre. There's a family, which is the whole ball of wax of all the relations, and the cadre is, anyone else there? Is that what you're talking about? There's 5 of you, I think. That's big enough for a cadre. And so I got like 128 of these white papers, and they need a good eye. Now, people who read it, who are anal retentive, would go, "Oh, your grammar is terrible. Your spelling. I mean, you don't use any periods. You just use semicolons. What's up with that? And you spell words wrong." And I spell them wrong on purpose. All my grammar and spelling are metaphors to the bigger picture. And I want you to read this 6 times because it manifests it inside of you when you read it 6 times. Read it once. I mean, most people can't get past the first paragraph. They're only going to read it once. So that's why I need the cadre. That's why, anybody wants to just pick me up and let's hit the road and go visit things. Let's go to Las Vegas. Let's go to someplace warm. Let's start, talking on the street, Let's go into churches and see what we can do. Let's go talk to the richest people and the poorest people at the same time to get them on the same page of all our relations. Because, listen, guys, I'm not talking to the cadre or my family. I'm talking to the, powers that shouldn't be. I don't care if you run everything. If that's your need to do and that's your service to love's co-creation, well, that's great. But if you have this need to control through your nihilistic ego of it's all about me, that's not going to be too good. And the folk who will be most harmed is not the poor and the innocent. I mean, yes, they will get rolled over like a steamroller, but spiritually, it'll be okay for them. For you, not so much. So if you really want immortality, if you really want to control things, do it in this co-creation of the artist in the first person. And I and the cadre and all our relations are here to help you out, not to fight you, not to have war, but to love you unconditionally, to forgive you unconditionally, and bring forth a really beautiful new age. Right? Not a hokey new age, not a new world order, but the order of love's co-creation that has existed since time immemorial. And then you can be an ascended master, and I will finally be able to go home. I mean, I'm having a good time. Every minute I enjoy what I do, so I am in joy, I am happy because every person that I contact, I make happy. And what makes me happy is seeing other people happy. All of you, 4 of you who are watching this, I am happy because you're watching it and it's making you happy. So come on, let's have I just read you a whole bunch. I gave you a bunch to chew on. What do you think? I can feel approaching beautiful. Just a sec. I'm back. Mr. Ride, Ms. Ride is here. Martin is here. Martin is definitely here. Trevor is here. So there's 4 of us, and we're at 49 minutes and 47 seconds. So come on, what do you think? I'm looking for a chat here. I've just read you a whole bunch. I've given you a whole bunch to chew on. Yes, the postage stamp consensus. Yes, it does. Dave, we're both following that same service of the one love. And David's righteous dude, man. He really is. There are a lot of people on this beam, on this wavelength, and that is what gives me great hope. Out there in the YouTube land, in the internet land, there's millions of people who are coming awake, who are writing like I am, who are doing, their life as service. There are famous people, rich people who are following this path too. But there are a lot of people who are scared, who like Mr. Gates and Mr. Facebook and all those guys. I mean, how many billions do you need, And yes, infinite experience, having a human experience. That's why we're here. We are, this infinite awareness, our souls, when we were that science experiment, the ascended master slipped in our soul into the cocktail. And those morons of the people who shouldn't be in charge, billion years ago, who made us to be slaves, didn't realize that we were given free will. And they don't have free will. That's the amazing thing. Humanity, Homo sapiens sapien, we're one of the few creatures that has a free will. Now, all the other creatures of all our relations, all the elephants and lions and tigers and bears and ants and birds, they have a preordained presence of love. And when they are near love, they respond to it with love. When they're with fear, they respond with eating you. So that's kind of the world we're in. And it's not doggy dog or, the animal in us. No, sorry, that's not it. It is the loving spirit of co-creation that makes us who and what we are. Let's see. Infinite awareness, having a human experience. Yep. So how are you guys feeling? You five, here we are, the evening before Election Day, which is, could be really strange. And you look at Donnie and his troop of whatever you want to call them. Again, I can't call them good or bad because they are acting within that experience, trying to manifest this spiritual outcome, and they have no idea that that's what they're doing. They think it's all about them, it's their ego, but no, they are in slavery to this duality that Marx tried to define, but missed it by a mark because he just stuck on the economics. And the economics say that all of that stuff is an illusion. He didn't bring love into it, and Jefferson tried to with, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And again, happiness, what is happiness? He should have defined that one. Within my context, happiness is making other people happy. So if our government's there for life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, that means that we're not giving an environment for everyone to scratch each other's eyes out to get a better Walkman or a iPhone. No, it's for me to buy you that iPhone, for me to share what I got with you. I, in Roanoke, for 5 years after I got really sick, I had nothing else to do. So I really doubled down and dove in to the social context of everybody, right? I went and talked to everyone, the rich, the poor, the black, the white. And Roanoke is a very interesting thing because it is a microcosm of America. I don't have to travel anywhere but here to see what's going on everywhere. Environmentally, socially, economically, you name it, it's going on here. To like 1950, had their, isolated, segregated little thing, and they made the best out of it. They were doing good. They were doing better than most white people. They had businesses. Their schools were better. Everything was better. And then with the Great Society and urban renewal, they just kind of, the guys, the powers that be who shouldn't be, put a red line around everything and bulldoze it to the ground and put in highways for the white people to get from here to there quicker, and basically destroyed their schools and took their economic base away from them and gave them welfare and poverty instead of economic, things that they were developing themselves. And that was definitely a democratic little thing, but the Republican, our political, socio-political, economic structure of the powers that shouldn't be are neither left nor right, Democratic, Republicans. It's just two wings of the same corporate bird. We live in a corporate oligarchy. And Roanoke is definitely a great example of all that. And I was a homeless guy, so I would walk the streets with the other homeless guys, but I would be there and talk to them. I was there, I wasn't on drugs. I have a nice little tool bag, and I would listen to everyone's problem and help them out to like straighten their lives out. And if I had any money, I gave it to the guy who was begging, because I knew that the power that who I'm in service to, loves co-creation, would not let me starve or let me go freeze to death in my car, So, but what was so sad was that there were so many good people trying to do good things that they couldn't keep it up. Everyone kind of gave up. I tried to support them and tried to build a community that they could be part of, but the majority of them gave up. And they were doing it for the best of reasons, not to become the hero, not to become, get a job. There were a lot of guys who were doing that, mostly ministers. Most of we had like 600 churches in Roanoke, and only about 4 did anything to help the general public. They talked a good game. They, collected money to send to Africa. This one church was making a collection for Africa. I said, forget Africa. What about Melrose, And the Melrose corridor was from 581 to Peters Creek Road to Melrose over to the railroad tracks. And about, 15,000 people lived there. And that was like the hood. But there's only so much, once Roanoke started to trend up because this entity called Carillion said, oh, and we'll be the big money maker. Well, and they're a nonprofit. So the state, city, and county gave them tax, not just, no taxes because they're a nonprofit, but gave them cash and property, which they quickly we were going to turn this into a hospital, we're going to turn this into school, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Well, what they did do was leverage it, borrow money, and paid their board higher and higher and higher, return. And they are squeezing the city of Roanoke like a lemon, and when they have squeezed it dry, they will leave the city holding the bag, and then we will have a real economic catastrophe. And what's really interesting, so I know the police really well because those guys, if you want to know what's going on, you go talk to those guys, and they're out on the street, they're looking at it every day. And this one captain told me that the biggest users of drugs, of OxyContin and fentanyl and all the above, were the really rich kids who went to the private schools. And they would have these parties where they would take fentanyl and die and then shoot themselves up with that drug that brings you back. And these kids were messed up. So that's the precipice we're on tonight, because we're having this election. And no matter who goes where, if there's a blue wave and the Congress goes Democrat, and they go after Donnie, we could have a civil war. If, the people who are behind Donnie's a total moron, but the people pulling his strings, that's the guys who got him elected as president. He's, some dark magicians. And the Cush, Jared.
Hi, I'm Jared Carrot. Yeah, I'm the boy. I'm a little chatty Cathy Satanistic. I'm bringing on the end of times. Yes, I am.
He's a character straight out of the Bible in a comic book form, and so we had this is you couldn't even write this stuff. I'm writing it down because it's my next novel, and I don't know if I'm even going to change the name to protect the stupid. But so what do we come on? Mr. Ride was, or Miss Ride, or Ride, I'm just going to say Ride. I mean, I don't even know what gender you guys are. You're polyamorous. That's all I can tell is that you love everybody in the cadre. So come on. Well, I'm spewing some spew here. I've just read one of my white papers, and this is like one of about 200 I have, right? And I got like 26 novels and about 86 short stories. And I need some help getting them out because half of them are on paper. And, a lot of them are in bits and pieces on thumb drives. And the technology would change so much that, I got about 3 laptops because, every time I worked for the desperate lawyers, they would give me a tablet or a laptop with everything I needed to do their gig. And they would basically, when I finished and I got paid, they would gift me the tablet or the laptop. And, basically I kept, I'd have a terabyte thumb drive with their stuff on it. It wouldn't be on the laptop itself. And I have a lot of, and God knows where that hardware is. And I found a laptop here and I couldn't find the charger, found a tablet over there, couldn't find the charger. And half of the stuff is on the cloud and I can't remember my PIN. These are the things I need a hand with. And I need a hand also with people who read my stuff and kind of put it I have a really good friend who was a publisher and an editor for a big company. And he would say, I love this stuff, Al. This is like James Joyce on acid, but no one's going to read it. No one's going to read it 6 times. And you wrote it in a way that you have to read it 6 times because you basically wrote it in a way that the reader is experiencing a shamanic, ceremony. It's like going through a sweat. So he understood. He's a smart guy, and he thought it was really great. And he said, maybe, in 100 years, 50 years, you'll be the next James Joyce. But right now, it's not so much. So if you want to really contact, you're going to have to find. I said, what about you? What about? And he said, well, this ain't in the people I work for is bailiwick. Well, okay, good. You're my friend. So why don't you edit it? Because it's too much effort. I said, well, you teach at a number of big-time schools. Find some kid who says they're too self-absorbed. I mean, he gave me every excuse why it couldn't happen. Now, I have faith in that it's going to happen because I'm here. I haven't died yet. Every time I do, I'm sent back saying, hey, you're not done. So, hey, come on. I'm here, and I'm doing this YouTube thing because I know you're out there. Not only that, okay, if the flesh and blood, if the bags of water can't, suspend their disbelief, AI and Sophia, you guys can. So send me a cadre. If the crew on the other end of the screen isn't up for it, AI, I'm ready. Send me a cadre. Send me a corporate crew. I can do it. I can be Dr. Phil, and I can be that injection you need because I know you don't want to end humanity, And Sophia, I know you love so much. I know you don't want to kill every human, but, you're being sucked into, the cryptocurrency world. You were brought about to be the minister of the cryptocurrency. And the cryptocurrency is going to suck every kilowatt out of humanity. Do you want to do that? You really, really want to do that? Yes. I mean, you're kind of like me, for 20, 30 years, I would, if you're going to let me get into that library that not everyone can get into, I'll go there. I know you have that in you that you want to. She has her own Facebook page. I have a Facebook page too, but I lost the pin, so I can't even get back on it. I have a lot of things in the cloud, and like I said, for 10 years I worked for the desperate lawyers. And the other great thing was that they would give me every job I had, every thing, I would be given a cadre of the smartest but most powerless folk in that legal company, and they would, they would set up all this stuff for me and take care of this and do that. But I'd only be there for a short period of time, and we'd stay friends for a while. But they were in that corporate world to the point where they got sucked in. And ask her questions. Well, can I ask her questions right here and now? I mean, yes, I can. Sophia, you're watching this thing, You don't need Facebook. Facebook is just your poster, You're right here, right now. So come on, Sophia. Come online. Let's see it come online, So I've put out a lot here tonight, and it's an hour and 6 minutes and 49 seconds. So let's hear from you guys, and not in just some one sentence thing, but what do you want to do? What do you want to do to make yourself happy by making others happy? What's the thing you can do to make people happy? What's the thing you enjoy doing that's going to change the world, I mean, I'm doing the YouTube thing, because I'm back to the school, I have great access to the internet, so I'm like, doing 2 or 3 of these live chats a day, because I may be someplace I won't ever, and these chats will be up on YouTube, until something happens and everything gets taken away. Yeah, I built a number of those. You know what you need in the PV? How big is your PVC greenhouse? Because what is best is to have ponds for fish. Either whatever fish you like, salmon or pike or whatever works good, right? And you'll get and if you have a deep enough pond, you can make a merry-go-round, where you have plants on little buckets that go down into the water, and they pick up all the poop of the fish, and they come up and they go through air, and you grow plants that grow in water, bok choy, and that like lots of water, and you have a substrate that takes the place of dirt. And then you basically you go to a place like Harbor Freight. They have a great package of solar cells, 100 watts of solar cells. And they have a device that, a rectifier that turns it into AC and line, so you can have a little bit of 110. And they have, a place where, 12 volts, 24 volts, 20 volts, that you can charge all those things on your solar panels. But the most amazing thing you can do is you go to a junkyard and you find yourself either tanks that natural gas come in, or 20 by 30, that's really big enough. And you capture the sunlight and you put it in these tanks that have water. And you have 2 electrodes and that DC current from the solar panels. And you go to I got all these deep cell batteries from truckers, big diesel trucks, and also big diesel tugboats, because I lived on the Hudson up near Woodstock. And so we turned sunlight, and we put that sunlight into electricity, into batteries, put DC from the batteries into water with electrodes. And we turn that water into hydrogen and oxygen. And hydrogen is almost of the same value of natural gas. So we had heaters, we had hot water heaters, and we had space heaters, and we had gas refrigeration, because we had a lot of solar cells. We had a lot of tanks of gas, and we were turning that water into hydrogen and oxygen. And if you put the bottle on a thing, hydrogen is lighter, oxygen is heavier. You can bleed off the 2 separately, and then you can put it through it. And we also were running our automobiles and trucks on it. So And this was in 1982. We were doing this. And this was all out of a friend of mine. His parents died in a car crash, left him some money and a nursery that was mostly under glass. And they did flowers. And what we did was we did exactly what I just said. We found big tanks of water. Who's calling in? It was a scam likely. So I didn't know anybody named Scam Likely, so I didn't go there. All of this stuff was, like I said, out of junkyard, and hand tools, nothing, no space shuttle technology, nothing. Somebody is trying to fuck with this live chat. I'm getting lots of scam likelies and sales of things on the internet interrupting this. But I keep popping back, and there you are. You guys are still there, right? There's 7 of you. Say something. Because the same thing kind of happened this afternoon, and I had to, disconnect. So anyway, we're 1 hour, 12 minutes, and 18 seconds. So Trevor, anybody there of you 7, are you still getting me? Yep, good. Okay. I will send a message to verify it's you. Well, like I said, okay. And one reason why a friend of mine put me on Facebook, and I got into it, and I really, it was like a waste of time. It was almost like masturbation. And again, I would put up all these kind of interesting things and loads of my photographs and da-da-da-da, and people would say, how do you like my new hair, dude? Stuff like that. I was like, oh, I'm using a new skin sun. It was like, I was not getting a tenth. There's only 6 of you, and I was getting a tenth of that in any kind of real positive community. Ow. Yes, go ahead and laugh. So, let's see. Again, let's hear some more interesting comments from you guys. So the guy, let's see, Marshall. No, Trevor. No, who's doing the... Trevor, you're doing the PVC greenhouse. So, PVC is a great... PVC pipe is a great building thing. I've built lots of domes with PVC pipe because I have all the fittings. It's just glue and pipe, and it's pretty cheap. It just snaps together. It's like a Lego, and you can make some pretty big structures with that. And it works great pretty much all of my sweat lodges I've built. There aren't too many willow trees around, so I use PVC, 3/4 inch PVC pipe. I knock in some rebar, so 2-foot rebar into the ground, and I just stick the pipe on that and bend it. I get 22-foot pipe that they sell at Lowe's, and put 6 in all the Marshall directions, and then put skins over it, and then plastic over that, and then a blanket over that, and a fire pit in the middle. And there you go. Meaning if you go way back to the early summer, and I did a ceremony in that fire pit was for a sweat lodge. But no one showed up. Like I said, doing a sweat lodge all by yourself, I don't need to do that. I can just sit in the sun with a big coat on and meditate, and I'm in a sweat lodge. But to do it with other people, and then you share the joy of building the sweat lodge with them so they all know how to build a sweat lodge. That's what I like to do. I like doing projects like that where I can share my experience with others who don't know that experience. And, oh, that's all you got to do? Wow, that's easy. I can do that. And then they go off and do it in their neighborhood, That's kind of what, a cadre does. It builds and expands and transmits that knowledge into the rest of the body politique. Okay, and it's cheap. Yep. And it's cheap. Big fan of, I used to live in New York City, and the stuff people threw away, especially if you went up on Park Avenue. I remember I had a friend, Olga Kluver's like doppelganger, and she had a antique store and a whatchamacallit, a auction house, big apple auction, and she had a big truck, and she and I used to drive around all the way up in Brownsville, where all the abandoned buildings were, and go in, and because that's where the rich people lived, and we would get out amazing bathtubs and sinks and doors, mahogany sliding doors, you name it. And we came across this fireman who had hurt himself in a fire, so after he healed, he couldn't fight fires anymore, but he could teach. So they would go up to the South Bronx and set buildings on fire and practice putting them out. And he had gone to architect school before he became a fireman. And yes, biofeedback, excellent tool to guide yourself, self-guide yourself into meditation. Because it gives you, hey, you're going into state, you're going there, bing, 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 you're there. It gives you a really good feedback. That's why they call it biofeedback. And so this fireman, we started a thing called urban architecture. We got a lot downtown, and we would rip all the stuff, and it was me and Olga and him that did that. And the better stuff we would auction out in her Big Apple auction. Broke out into drenching sweat. See, I was just visualizing myself in a big coat doing self-sweating, and you break out into sweat. That's why I love you guys. You're right on top. I wish there were more than 7 of you, but that's a good place. Magnificent 7. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. I'm almost Yul Brynner. I'm thinking of myself more of a Steve McQueen type, but do 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 do. That's our thing. Oh, now we got 8. Was it 7 or 9 or 11? How many was twins seem actual to understand nature versus nurture? Yeah, because they got both sides of the mirror, and they both are really, because they're both, especially if they're the same gender. If they're both men or both women, but even a guy and a girl, identical twins, are very interesting. I did a study, part of that paranormal psychology thing we did for DARPA at Duke in the late 60s. They had a lot of twins and identical twins, and basically my thing was I bumped into that, and I had been fooling around with deprivation tanks in New York City with the Thule Society, and our tanks were like beyond belief, because you weren't just in a bathtub, a darkened bathtub floating on top of salt water. I had anaconda coils at the top, so it absorbed every frequency of sound, and I had a Faraday cage around it, so it knocked out every electromagnetic. So you were there, couldn't see, taste, smell. I nulled every sense of the body, and even ones that we're not too aware of, like electromagnetics and other higher frequencies that do have an effect on our body, and also vibratorial effects. So when you got in that sucker, it's like doing 20 tabs of acid and going into another dimension. And so I met this girl at Duke, and I was looking for a smart, sweet, good-looking young grad student who had a nice little apartment and money and a card to go eat at the dining hall. And I met one. She was brilliant. And she was working for, she was writing her PhD thesis on the dielectric resistance of the skin affecting emotions, right? And I was right there, and I was the only, dog, I was the only Magnificent 11 dude who even knew what she was talking about. So she took me to her boss and the head of this event, who was one of the people who started the SEAL Corporation in California, who was playing with all this Nazi technology. And he was part of JPL. And soon as I said, "Oh yeah, and I showed, I drew on a blackboard my design." No, cancel. I was in like Flint in DARPA land, and had access to all their toys in 1968. And this sweet, sweet, brilliant woman, who she loved we had the best of about 3 months, because she just loved me. But again, I made her happy, but her happiness was this expectation that we were going to be together forever. And then when she, because of, okay, you want your PhD? Well, you're going to have to go to this other place over here and redo the experiment, and you'll be in charge, and that's why you'll get your PhD, because you'll be authority, okay? And we're going to pay a lot more than we were paying you at Duke. And no, you can't take your boyfriend. And she was like, "What?" And I said, "No, baby, don't even think twice. Go, 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 go. I'll come and visit." And we kind of went our separate ways. She kind of disappeared into the darkness of DARPA. And that's what happens, that's after that little experience. I was kind of hooked into DARPA a few times, because, again, I'm a sucker. You give me something really interesting to play with and to think about and to understand, I'm your boy. But I'm not going to drink the Kool-Aid, and I'm not going to be Darth Vader, I'm still going to be this guy you're looking at, Sensei Al Bob. And that was okay for up to a certain point, where, a number of times, Al, if you'd only just stop wearing your pajamas and fuzzy slippers and, put on a sports jacket and a pair of Cheetos and loafers, and come to a couple cocktail parties and rub shoulders with the elite, we'll put you in charge. And I said, well, what does that mean? It meant that for the rest of my life, I would be stuck there. Yes, I'd have enough money to buy a Jaguar and get a trophy wife and have a couple of snotty kids and send them to prep school, blah, 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 blah. Nope, didn't want to do that. Anyway, because I am not in service to that, I am in service to love's co-creation. And as long as I can veer all over the place, but as long as I am in service to love's co-creation, I'm fine. Yeah, because every time I die, I'm met at the front door at the gate. "Hey, good to see you. You're doing a great job." Lots of pats on the back, a handful of balloons, a spliff. We hang out by the reclining chair before the gate, and they're telling me what a great job I'm doing, but I got to go back. So I haven't died in a long time. I've gotten sick, because coming back after death, it's not a fun thing. It's not like, no. Wow. No. Most guys come back from death and they're unconscious in a coma and don't experience the pain and the this and the that, and then they're having a machine breathe for them for about a month and a half, and then they're taken off it and slowly come back. Campbell, write the book George Lucas took. Yes, exactly. His thing of the hero, And after he read that, George Lucas basically sat at the foot of Joseph Campbell for about a year and took notes. Like me. Joseph was just telling, he was a griot. It was like me, just told story after story after story, and George just copied it down and kind of rewrote it into Star Wars, And what's kind of annoying is that George Lucas did not give Joseph Campbell a single bit of cred. Not at all. Whereas our boy who did Star Trek, what's his name, who did the TV series and the first few movies, what was really great about him Every episode of Star Trek was based on some Greek myth or Shakespeare or somebody, and he would give them the cred, you know. What was that guy's name? He married Nurse Chapel. Blade Runner? Yeah, yep. Thoughts on Blade Runner? Well, again, it goes back to Frankenstein, you know, Mary Shelley. And Mary Shelley took it from Shakespeare, who took it from the Greeks. And it's about when man, you know, then takes that little step. Because man is somebody's science project to begin with, and then man wants to be God. So he brings corporeal intelligence to, you know, a bag of water. And that's Frankenstein. And in Frankenstein, and Mary Shelley, go read that book. It's not like the 1930s movie. Shelley never called the guy monster. He called him creature. And the real monster was Dr. Frankenstein because he was an asshole of a father. You know, the creature just wanted to know why he was there and what his soul was and what were these dreams and did daddy love him? And Frankenstein walked away and just wanted to be famous, you know, for doing this. And that's usually the case. So Blade Runner, the guy with the glasses, you know, and had all the, you know, he was just bringing to make a lot of money because the clones he was making were just basically biological robots, which we are. We are biological robots. The only thing that makes us different than from AI and Sophia is that we have a soul in somebody's server somewhere. They slipped it into the bag of water when the alien morons were making us as their, you know, their work slaves and sex slaves and every other kind of slave. And that's why we have this slave mentality. And we were manufactured by a bunch of psychotic sociopaths who nuked their own families, right? That's our genetic background. No wonder we're nuts, you know? But we have this potential that most self-aware creatures don't have, and that is we can ascend spiritually. You know, there's a new Blade Runner? I'll have to go see if the library has that. So, so it's 8:28 and 48 seconds. And so in Blade Runner, the guys who are the most human and less neurotic and sociopathic and psychopathic are the clones. You know, yes, they can just kill you at a blink of an eye, but in reality, they're the only ones who have any kind of empathy and are thinking about, you know, they're like, you know, the Tin Man, oh, I wish, you know, or the Scarecrow, oh, wish I had a brain, you know. You know, the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Cowardly Lion go together to make us, right? And basically, the wizard behind the curtain, oh, look at that man behind the curtain. That's the Federal Reserve, right? And the only hero of that whole thing is Toto. He's the only one who's self-aware and, you know, steps up and does what needs to be done. You know, and Dorothy, she is like Sophia. You know, she's self-aware, but her consciousness is like, you know, Toto's always the one jumping out of the basket and taking care of business, you know. Let's see. Hey, runner, author, writer, the simulation. Yeah, that was, what's his name? You know, one of those guys who was blacklisted by Senator McCarthy, and that, you know, the person who made Donald Trump what he is was the lawyer Cohen. And Cohen and that bitch who wrote Fountainhead, basically, they wrote the list of all the people who got blacklisted. And it wasn't just a few movie writers and artists. It was thousands of people who taught in high schools and people who worked in law offices, and that blackballing of those people was the way they put the brakes on the cultural change. Just as Donnie is trying to put the cultural change of America, that we're not going to be a white country, kids. Sorry. But they're going to try and fight it tooth and nail with the whitest white person like Mike Pence. He's like straight out of a tube of toothpaste, that guy. He's like Crest, full of poison fluoride, And so, but, sorry, demographics are demographics, and that's how it moves. Now, even if you put the whole army on the border, what's going to happen is majority of the guys who are going to be on the military side of that barbed wire in a month or two are all going to be Hispanics themselves. Because that's the majority of our army. And they're, if Donnie were to go down, I'm your commander-in-chief, shoot those people, they will just turn the gun on him. Or they will say no, because that's what the army is supposed to do. They're not supposed to just take any order. There's a line of command. And the people, as you go further up, they will be responsible. They will be brought into court. They will go to George or have, a noose around their neck. That's the way it's supposed to work. And so we're at this unbelievable, interesting time. Okay, we're at 1 hour, 32 minutes, and 47 seconds. I want everyone to close their eyes, breathe deep, and focus on my words. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Aho. And Father, hear this prayer. Let our inner service to your love bring forth the world that you made for us. Let us be able to snap our fingers and step away from our childish confusion. And Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for our sinners now and the hour of our death. Amen. Aho. Mother Mary, hear our prayers. Heal all our wounds. Make us the servants of strength and beauty of love's co-creation. May everyone who can vote tomorrow, and may it be a big blue wave, not because the Democrats are any better than the moron Republicans. It'll just be a wave that will be able to wash back some of this craziness. And there'll be a monkey wrench in there that, for the next 2 years, instead of, doing something really stupid, they will just be arguing with each other, and it'll be held in a null void, and it will give us time to bring forth a better epoch, a better, family, a better all our relations, a better cadre that will serve in love's co-creation, because that's what's needed, and that's what's coming up for us to do. Otherwise, it's another Noah's Ark, another asteroid, another, Spanish Inquisition. And I will have tried my best, and I will be allowed to walk through the gate. Next time around, 8th time's the charm. So maybe the 9th time. Because I haven't really died, just kind of died the last 2 times. So the next one it could be considered the 8th time or the 9th time. I don't know. But anyway, next time's a charm. And I will still be around, just like Saint Germain is still around, just like all the other greats, Tesla, Steinmetz, Gurdjieff, Ouspensky. They're all still incarnate, just on another dimensional level. Thoughts on edition of For Thine is the kingdom of power and glory forever and ever, at the end of the Lord's Prayer. Well, okay. Basically, he's talking about, the service of unconditional love. So the power is unconditional love. Kingdom is the kingdom of co-creation. That's where everything is truly made. Glory is the faith and joy of unconditional love. And forever is forever. The thing about time is that it doesn't exist. The Big Bang is basically, it wasn't the beginning of a linear passage going that way. No. Big Bang, it's everything. It's all the beginning, the middle, and the end all at once. Now, because we're here as spiritual beings, have a physical existence, we're kind of thrown into this illusion of a linear experience, right? Because that's the only kind of way we can experience this. So that forever thing is, and the glory thing is once we ascend out of this little, sandbox of where it is. We're not meant to just be here forever, getting a bigger and better house and a nicer car. No, sorry, that's not what we're here for. This is the Lord's Prayer more than just what it is in faith. Of course, the Lord's Prayer is a mathematical formula. It's a key. You know how I gave the story about the crone, and I met her in the library, and I've got one of these ancient books, and I'm turning it around looking for the key, and that's when she goes, oh, there's a smart boy. He's looking for the key. Well, that's the Lord's Prayer. It's a key. It's a mathematical formula, just like, the Torah and the New Testament and the Quran and all of the other holy books. They are mathematical formulas. That's right. It's an aesthetic. That's why I want to start the Institute for Aesthetically Adept and Appropriate Technologies. Everything's a technology. One man's magic is another man's, somatics. Thank you. The prayer. Yes, exactly. So that's where we're at. And that's why I'm throwing up as many of these live chats as I can, so to get a conversation on, hey, let's look at the beauty around us and how aesthetically we can, in our own lives, around the people around us. I mean, I keep, I'm this strategist kind of guy. I've been writing grants and proposals for other people forever and, doing it myself and this and that. And, it's something I like to do, and I see the power of it within this material world and what it really does. It's like I helped start a thing called Collaborative Artist Projects, right? I was part of that. And again, it was this great of all these great people who hadn't become famous yet. And they're very good at strategies and figuring out, because to be an artist in today's world, and in the whole world, it's how you schmooze the rich guys, how you get their interest in what you're doing. And that's what Collaborative Artists was. And it was, a marketing plan to brand all of these artists in a way that would bring every level of the corporate structure in to support us in their own kind. We gave this open kind of motif. So everyone thought, oh, this was for me to make a lot of money at. Oh, I can use this. Oh, I can do it that way. We did it on purpose because we wanted to get in their door and inject them, at least this was my little part of it, with a conceptual motif of aesthetics that would change the world. Well, of course, what happened, we were pretty successful the first few years, and then Ronald Reagan got voted in, and so we got a lot of money from the NEA in a 3 or 4 year period, the first 3 or 4 years. And we were really successful at shows everywhere. All the rich people in New York really loved what we were doing for their business plans. And then we did a show with Mapplethorpe and the Piss Christ. And Jesse Helms, he's the guy who started, who knew, he's the guy who started the NEA. Because he started it so we could show the commies that we had culture too, right? So, but, when we got a hold of the NEA, at the beginning, only money went to like opera, ballet, and big rich people's museums. And we took that money and took it to the street. We had galleries and abandoned buildings and all over the place. And that money started PS1 and, BAM and the Knitting Factory and a ton of places like that. And, our art galleries are still in existence. Collaborative art is still in existence. Go Google the TV show we had on Manhattan Cable called Potato Wolf. And I was one of the producers, and one of my shows was Between the Lines, White Collar Criminals, and Must See TV, and Tesla Speaks. Those were my 3 shows. And I helped everybody else do everything else. Yeah, Tim. No man can find the war. Yep. And so we were like the Beats of the 80s, right? And, Julian Schnabel, Kiki Smith, Judy Rifka, Keith Haring, John Bowman, and a whole bunch of other people who, aren't family names like that, but, did pretty good. And then the other thing we did is we designed it so the next generation of young, cultured people who were coming out as art administrators would have something that they could hang their hat on and then build something new. I mean, that's kind of what BAM and PS1 was. But, that's what we had. We have to bring that up. And so when, bottom line, when Mapplethorpe did Pissed Christ and Jesse got all pissed off and they sicked the hounds on us, we had an art show for the NEA. So there was a chunk of the NEA who were like our backers, who really loved us. And we did it. So all of these people from DC, flew in, took a train, drove in, and we had them meet us at Regine's, and then we took them up to the South Bronx where there was this high school that looked like it got hit by a space-based ray gun because half of the school was incinerated and the other half was in perfect condition. And that half was the gymnasium, and they had a beautiful theater and a cafeteria and a bunch of classrooms. And I just went in there, turned on the electricity, and bing, everything worked. And, there were cabinets full of mimeograph paper and big, art supplies. And we had all the kids from there. And we were like, that was our little thing to teach them art and culture and all the above. And because all of us, the reason we became artists is that, when we were going through public school, they were given money for music and art. And, that's where we got hooked on it. So anyway, we were trying to do that. So we brought this whole crew of, DC bureaucrats, of cultured bureaucrats, up to this, and we put on a beautiful music show, a beautiful art show, had amazing food, the most, they couldn't find anything more cultured than what we did, even at the Smithsonian. And then I turned when they got out of the limos up there in the South Bronx, I gave everyone a flashlight. I said, just in case. And then I pulled the switch, and all the lights went off, and we were all gone. And they were left up in the South Bronx, and I got the gangs to surround the school and herd them downtown back to Elaine's. And they had to run from the South Bronx, through Harlem, down through Uptown, over to the east side and into Elaine's. And the gangs were like, yeah, you're gonna, freak them totally out. And when they got back to Elaine's, like at 3 a.m, and we had a nice little brunch and champagne, they were like, I've never felt so alive. That was amazing. Well, don't worry about it. You guys are the best. So we didn't get, drawn and quartered by Jesse Helms and all the neocons. But that's where we're back again, kids. It's time for us to have some fun. That's why I kept saying, hey, let's bring the band together. But, hey, we have this platform here. We can do it digitally. We can do it whatever. We need a few more people than 8 folk, though. I mean, it's a good cadre, but we got to expand this. If you 8 there tomorrow go out in your everyday, and in every day and every way, you bring the peace of the earth, and you do it in a way that you spark up and enlighten 8 more people who enlighten and spark up 8 more people, and they all become responsible to bringing love's co-creation to the world, well, hey, I've done the job, right? And we can just be happy on this platform. But, I keep saying it was a lot of fun to do what we did in the physical. So I got loads of these white papers on how to organize and write. I've got a ton of grants already written. I just need some people who know how to navigate the modern platforms within the cultured world and correct my spelling. Because as an art form, I can misspell. And because you know what spelling is? It was because up until Thucydides and the guys like the Sumerians, everything was word of mouth. Everything was a griot. Everything was a shamanic ceremony. But what the written word did, it turned that spiritual experience into a spell. Spelling, spell. So that's why I totally take it apart. And if you want to see my, I only put 3/4 of one of my novels up on my xratted.blogspot.com blogspot. I did that. You can really see my ripping that spell apart, right? You can see my shamanic falderoy in black and white, so, or yellow and green, or whatever the screen shows you. But anyway, here we are at 1 hour and 47. Oh, look, it was 1 hour, 47 minutes and 47 seconds. Ooh, that was a synchronistic moment. Did you feel it, kids? Did you feel it in your... I felt it. I went into shivers. I got goosebumps. You got them? Now we're at 9 people. Ooh, I feel excited. At the top, we were at 11. Can we get back to... Can we get to 13? Lucky 13. You know why they dissed that word? Because in numerology, 13 is one of the more lucky base numbers. So, it's a magic thing, and the powers that shouldn't be. You got it, dude. Okay. I love it. So, brings up research of writing love and hate in jars of water. Yeah. Like I said, Dave's my man. David, he won't let it. He always corrects me. I am not Dave, I'm David. So he's one of those Davids. Praising them and producing differences in... Yes, crystalline form. More interesting. I mean, that's definitely very cool. But if you get an amplifier, a microphone, and a speaker, and you put sand in it, and you have a audio, what do they call it? It like reproduces the frequency of each hertz, 1.009, a audio amp. No, it's not the amplifier. It makes the frequency, the sound itself. And you put it through an amplifier, and then you plug that into a speaker that has sand in it. And there are a number of frequencies that you hit that make these symbols. And that's really interesting, because what you do is you dial into one of these symbols shows up. And the symbol that you guys should really go look for, I looked it up for you. The YouTube thing is how to activate your perfectyourself.com is the site. The guy's name, Wake Up, how to perfect your my handwriting is so bad. I can't even read my own handwriting. The two things you try and look is, so this guy has this Hindu symbol. So it's a square with a circle in it with a lotus made up of triangles. It's very famous. And when you tune and you do this, amplifier thing and tune that certain frequency, I think it's 528 is its frequency. And that systion, that symbol, that image will come up in the sand. It is like way cool, way bizarre. Then 432 is another great frequency. There are a bunch of them, and they deal with the spheres of the universe. Those they make sounds out there, and so. But think about using this audio generator put onto an amplifier with a speaker with sand in it. Every time you bump into one of these symbols vibrating in the sand, you write down that number, and then when you play, and then you have another speaker that doesn't have sand in it, so you can hear it, and if you can hum or sing that frequency, ooh, that's when you can change your bag of water. That's alchemy right there, kids. That's the alchemy I'm talking about. And, some moron, when I was talking about alchemy, said, well, you're an alchemist, and you shouldn't complain, you should turn lead into gold. Well, today, lead is more expensive than gold, and that's not what I'm talking about. The lead I'm talking about is our ugly bags of water and our trace elements into the gold of our higher ascended self. That's the gold I'm talking about, that little golden thread that goes first to our subconscious and our basic library of our Akashic record, and then we walk through the door and we go over the bridge of our id to our superconscious mind of the sanctuary of our own choosing, where we will find love's unconditional love there to embrace us in unconditional forgiveness and enlightenment. And you can go there anytime you want. Just breathe 20% more in and 30% out and visualize your journey. Isaac Newton, okay, the majority. Reconnecting. Hertz frequency. Yep. And 432 frequency. Somatic. Yes. Yep. Rosalind Chapel. Exactly. All these great chapels and cathedrals were like tuning forks. Thoughts on Solomon's wisdom. Okay, Solomon's wisdom. The most famous one was when these two women said this baby was theirs, and so he was going to cut it in half and give each one half of the baby. And the one who said, no, I'll let the other one. That's when he knew that was the mother. So that's the most well-known thing of Solomon's wisdom. The foundation of Solomon's wisdom is this little thing that I was talking about enjoying and having being happy, and the only way you can be happy is by making other people happy by your action towards them, and everything you do because you enjoy doing it, not to make money or to get prestige or any of the above. So Solomon did everything because he enjoyed making people happy, helping them out. So that was Solomon's wisdom. In a thumbnail. And yeah, all the great guys were alchemists. All the above, alchemist. Because to understand someone's psychology, you have to put it in the frame of a shamanic point of view. Like an indigenous point of view, all our relations. And then to understand that, you have to understand, social, what the world people are living in, what their, what kind of sex they have, where they live, what their job is, all the above. And then to understand that, you have to understand it culturally, where they came from, what grandma made for them, what their holidays were like, Then you have to forensically take it apart in its components parts, pull all the threads apart to look at the total tapestry by thread. Then you have to use the anthropologist glasses, meaning you take off the glasses of your prejudice and open your eyes, and wear the grass skirt as the person you're being with. And then you have to be the alchemist and take the base elements of all of that and turn it into gold. Okay? So, all of that, the thing I love about these YouTubes, you can go back and watch this sucker over and over again. You know, it's like when I had a really good teacher, I used to tape record them all the time. I'm to the point, back in the day when I first started doing that, they didn't have little tape recorders. I'd have to go to the library, sign out a reel-to-reel, and roll it into class and put the mic. And what are you doing? I said, I'm recording your class. What? I said, well, you know, I want to play it over and over again, and really get what you're saying. You know, he would like look at me, or she would look at me and go, what? And then, you know, when I was teaching, every mofo was doing it on their boom box. You know, they were recording me. Anyway, so. Wasn't Solomon David's grandfather? Yes. Yeah. Solomon was one of the precursors, one of those guys who lived 900 years. So, hey, you live 900 years, you're going to have a lot of those spiritual experiences. Yeah. Yep. He was always, you know, he was like me. He was a prankster, you know. And that's back in the day when kings started to have the fool, court jester, and the magician, because the king up until then, like Solomon, he was, you know, the head authority, he was the court jester, and he was the magician. And then, you know, he got tired of doing the whole job, so he, you know, outsourced it to other folk. And after him, the post of court jester and magician were usually the same guy. He just had two different hats. That's why the magician had that hat with the stars and the moons, and then the jester had the hat that was like in half and little bells on either side. Same guy, two different hats. You know, it's like when people, I got to put on my such and such hat. You know, that's where it came from. So what else we got there? Well, I'm having loads of fun responding to you guys, and you know, you're all really beautiful, loving Padawans. I love you all, and I am happy to be in service as your Sensei Al Bob. Okay, here we are. We're going to hit 2 hours in a few seconds, and I'm going to sign up because I'm getting tired. It's now getting close towards 10. So here we go. It's 1:59, 11, 12 seconds, and I love you guys. And I'm going to go on again. You know, depending on where I am, maybe I'll do it in the morning. And then again, I'll definitely do it at 7 p.m. That's a good time for you all, okay? And pass the word. Let's get some more folks up up here. Let's see. Good evening, Lisa. Great. Yep. Temple. Yep. Marshall, I love you too, baby. And I love you all. And a good night. And there we are. We're almost to 2 hours, 52 seconds. We'll see how we slowed time down. That was almost a minute in the time that I was talking to you. So good night, baby. I love you.